This meeting to order of the Brawley City Council and successor agency, the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency, our regular meeting of February the 1st, 2022. Roll call.
The minutes will reflect all council members present.
Thank you. Invocation, how about you, Luke? Could we have you do that?
Absolutely. If you're here, you can stand.
All rise.
Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we are grateful to you again this week for this opportunity to gather together and attempt to guide our city. We ask that you would give us wisdom from above, that we'd make the right decisions for the progress of Brawley. We thank you for your hand of protection that's upon us. We thank you that you're helping to get us through this wave of COVID. We ask that things would be able to get back to normal soon, that you would continue to protect our city and our safety workers. We thank you for your blessings and your mercies that are new every morning. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. Ramon, would you lead us in that?
Yes, sir. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, I need an approval of the agenda.
George, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
And I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Okay. Now we have public appearances, not to exceed 4 minutes. This is for the public to address the council on any item not appearing on the agenda. That is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. Questions and comments to the city council. You're not allowed to make personal attacks. And I think I'm going to begin to start limiting people to 4 minutes. So is there anybody from the public that wants to state anything? I don't think we have anybody from the public in the audience per se. Is anybody online or anything that would want to say anything?
I don't see anybody, son.
Okay. With that in mind, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Item number 3. Items are approved in one motion. Council members and members of the public may request consent items be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second, Donnie Wharton.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, now we go to the city manager report, item number 4.
I will defer for now, and I'm sure the mayor will cover some of the items that we had attended together, so.
Okay, all right. So we'll go to item number 5, which are our regular business. And 5A is an update on City of Brawley declaration of local emergencies as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. Overall outlook presented by Mike York, Fire Chief. Mike, are you there?
He is here.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Couchman and city council members and city staff. I'm trying to start video. There we go. Pardon me with the technical difficulties. Just bringing you tonight the update on the emergency declaration related to the COVID-19 pandemic. As many are aware, we're seeing quite a bit of a surge within our Imperial County. Produced a report today. Based on the county website, we have currently 4,290 persons with active cases of COVID in our county. We are seeing our hospitals with a deluge of patients. We are utilizing 91% of the local surge capacity. 55% of our ventilators are in use. And it was reported this morning, yesterday afternoon, that 0 ICU beds are available. So it looks like ICU patients are being transported out of the county. We've also recorded quite a few deaths. We're at 845 since the beginning of the pandemic being tracked. As of our last council meeting on January 18th, we were at 811 deaths. So 34 deaths in the past few weeks. For tier metric purposes, and once again reminding that the tier metrics are no longer being used for what's open and closed. However, they're good measures for activity. We are at 264 positive 100,000 and a 41.2% positivity rate for those being tested. Locally at a Brawley Fire and EMS response, we've recorded 410 calls for COVID service and 205 calls directly COVID positive. Variant data, we're seeing the Delta variants taper off. We recorded 1,166 cases of that. We are seeing more and more of the Omicron cases. Pretty status quo when it comes to vaccination status, where we're seeing about 50% of the people with variants are not vaccinated. Vaccinated is about 26, and unknown is about 23%. The majority of our unknowns are asylum seekers, or excuse me, a significant number of the unknown vaccine status are asylum seekers. The health order for the universal indoor masking that was put in place in December 15th is still under effect until February 15th or until further notice. With our current numbers, I would anticipate that mandate being extended. Just to focus on our local agency, some of our outlying agencies, some of our sister agencies in other cities in the county have had temporary staffing issues where they've been unable to respond to mutual aid. So our focus has really been to maintain situational awareness with our neighbors and within ourselves. Within the fire department, we've had a few personnel out. I know that we've had some throughout the city. But within our fire department, we've had them across different stations and shifts, so our continuity of service has been maintained. No major effects within our city, but we've had some periods where we've been unable to respond to mutual aid as well. If there's any questions regarding the information, or if there's any specific information you seek for future meetings, I would be happy to take that now.
Any questions from city council members for Chief York? No? Okay, any questions from staff regarding this? No? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Very welcome.
Okay. So, we go to item 5B, discussion and potential action to receive and file the fiscal year 2021-22 mid-year budget report and approve the recommended budget adjustments presented by Carlo Romero, Finance Director. Carla?
Hello, council members. Good evening. I have a few items, so I'll just kind of hang out here with you for a little bit at the podium. The first one is the budget report. This is our mid-year budget report. It runs from July 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. Let's see. So overall, just a reminder, the budget is a living, breathing document. We constantly monitor it, and we make these adjustments as we're presenting tonight in order to keep up with the current trends, what we're seeing based on our monitoring of our budget. We also want to recognize those unanticipated revenues and expenditures as they pop up, so we don't have major variances, and then we don't have to explain these major variances to our auditors. They know we're on top of it, they know we're looking at it, they know we're adjusting it along the way, and it also helps us to prepare for next year's budget. So when you take a look at next year's budget and we give you this year's budget and this year's actuals, you can better gauge next year's projections as well to make sure that they're accurate. So it serves a lot of purposes going ahead, and this is a comprehensive analysis, and it does take some time. And so we try to do here is we try to focus only on those budgets that require adjustments. Everything else that's not presented means it's just on target. That doesn't need an adjustment. We're going to meet the revenues and expenditures within that fund.
Okay.
Sorry, Armando, it's not clicking forward. So let's kind of take a high-level approach and kind of take a look at what's going on with our revenues and expenses at a high level. The revenues mostly are on target to meet our budget expenditures. We're seeing very strong construction and permit activity. A lot of the revenues adjustments for development are associated with the Latigo Ranch development here in the city. That has really been active. We do have some revenue adjustments this year, but they are mainly focused on one-time funding sources, means that they're not going to continue year over year. These are grant funds, donations, contributions, and also carryovers from last fiscal year. And then on the expenditure side, what we're seeing is that overall departments are adhering to their budgets, so they're doing a really good job in making sure that they're not going over their budget, and if they are, they're definitely letting us know so that we can adjust that accordingly and have a justification for it. We're also seeing some unanticipated expenses, though, for maintenance and repairs as equipment, maybe large equipment breaks down. It costs a lot of money to repair that. And also just utility bills. As we're opening up our facilities again, we're seeing that some of those utility bills are coming in a little bit higher than we anticipated them to be at. We're also seeing some major delays, an increased cost in vehicle and heavy equipment purchases. We were just told that there's a 30 to 40 week delay to get a vehicle. So, as we budget this, we budget from the beginning of the year, but we really aren't getting some of this equipment for a really long time. So we're trying to leverage just any source, right? We've kind of been contacting the county, other major government agencies, asking them how they're acquiring their equipment, seeing if they have any surplus, just trying to see what is a creative way that we can get some of the equipment that we need at a decent cost, according to the prices that we currently are facing. Overall, we're also seeing a staffing shortage. Later on in the agenda, we have the staffing report. You see that there's 11 vacancies. Several of them have been gone out for recruitment more than once, and we're continuing to see that shortage as well. So our departments are even leaner than they normally are because of those vacancies. So we're doing our best with what we have. So let's talk a little bit about the adjustments, and these are general fund focused first. So we have revenue adjustments. We have some reimbursements for COVID relief that is being passed through to the city of $7,900. We also have those construction permits that are already over budget, and so we want to adjust that to match our current revenues and a little bit more that's anticipated to end the fiscal year. And then the library program for ZIP, which is an online program where people can order books, have them shipped to their home, and then returned to the library and used by other patrons. That program came back, and so you'll see a revenue and an expense adjustment for that same amount, the $3,150. Then on the bottom left there, you see the expenses. Overall, we have a few operating expense adjustments that total $11,800. They're for enhanced building security, some property taxes for the Guadalupe Park, which is on a lease back to the city, and we pay those property taxes. And then also just some information technology that was needed at the senior center to get that up and running again. And then, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit of utility, electric and gas, both at the admin, city hall, and senior center buildings combined. It's an adjustment of $5,400. And we talked about the zip books. So if you look on the right, that is an abbreviated version of what your Exhibit C is. Exhibit C lists every single expense or revenue adjustment that the City Council has approved through the last meeting, so the meeting right before this one. But if these adjustments on the left are approved, the revenues and expenses in the mid-year budget, our current budget surplus for the general fund would be $141,082. Any questions on any of these? Okay. So next we'll talk about all of the other funds that are non-general fund monies. The top one is the Senior Citizen Utility Grant.
Carla, if I'm,
Yes.
Since on this item here, and as it relates to utility bill help for the COVID, people that had issues with COVID that maybe weren't able to pay their bill. Could you expand on that just a little bit about that and the other program, and specifically about how there's still money available and that we have been reaching out to?
Absolutely, yes. So the first one is for the senior citizens specifically. We do have another one that is not an age-limited grant fund for utilities, and there is more money available in that one. We have actually seen more traction on this particular grant. We got a total of $126,725 for this grant, and we've already spent nearly all of it. So we only have about $30,000 left, and we're just seeing a lot of word of mouth. And as the senior center opened up, friends told friends or family members, and so we have been able to have quite a few individuals under this grant. As of the last time I checked, which was about 2 weeks ago, it was 107 residents that we had been able to help. And so we're hoping to expend all of these funds by June 30th, which is why we're asking to just appropriate all of the revenues and expenses. We did a guess on kind of where the expenses would land because this one does cover not only water, wastewater, trash, it also covers gas, internet service. Sorry, let me grab that other paper. So it covers a little bit more than the other grant that we have. Natural gas and electricity also for this one for the seniors. The other grant only covers the utility, the water, wastewater, and trash. But we do have funds available in that other grant as well. I believe we have over $100,000 left in the other one. Applications for both grants are available online under the Finance Department's website, or you can always call the Utility Billing Department, and we're happy to walk you through that. A lot of people are very nice to us because we are paying off their bills. And then the next one, the $64,700 under the American Rescue Plan Act, that is money that is being reimbursed to us from the cities of Westmoreland and Calipatria for part of the dispatch service upgrades that we have. So within our American Rescue Plan, we had budgeted only the difference on the expenditures. So we are going to put that revenue back because we're using it for other things. But the full expense is coming out of the American Rescue Plan. And then those in orange, those are all related to strong construction development that we talked about. A lot of those, again, were coming from the Latigo Ranch. And again, these are just above our actuals to meet kind of where we expect the year to end. The airport fund, we're seeing fuel sales are up there because we're seeing landings going up as well, and just fuel sales overall. They've slowly been increasing year over year since 2019. And so we have been talking to the Airport Commission about increasing these to match where we're expecting our current year-end revenues to land. And the last one is just another reimbursement. This one we're expecting for a few years. I believe it's 5 years, sorry. Yes, 5 years for a total of $379,104. It's very rare when your insurance company gives you back money, but basically these are excess funds, and there's 79 agencies, and they're slowly giving back all of the funds over an incremental period of time for charges.
Okay.
So that one will be an ongoing revenue just for the 5 years. So next year you'll see that in next year's budget already. So remember how we talked about there being a budget surplus of $141,082. So normally everything that we ask the council to approve is stuff that we already know has occurred or will occur. These are additional funding requests that we would like your permission or your approval to go ahead and incorporate into this year's budget on top of the ones that staff has already recommended. So if you recall, back when we adopted the budget, we actually had 6 positions in various departments, and we were only really able to fund one of them, and it's the building inspector position. And we unfortunately have had 2 unsuccessful recruitments, and we're on our 3rd one. And so that position continues to be vacant, even though it was approved and funded in the budget. And then also, if you recall back on June 15th, 2021, that's when the budget was adopted. That's the same day that the economy started to reopen, that the state lifted mask mandates. And so there was a lot of just unknowns at that time. And we were really conservative with how we prepared our budget. We had COVID uncertainty, but we also had a utility user tax pending for November. We were hesitant to make those long-term commitments with especially these ongoing salary and benefits if we didn't know where that was going to land. Fortunately, that did get approved in November, and so now we have some fiscal stability going forward from that tax revenue. So what we're asking to fund is the fire marshal position. If you were to approve that tonight, we would open a recruitment. We probably wouldn't be able to fill the position until early April, just based on kind of where we're going. We have to do an analysis and everything else, but this is based on the current salary range. It would be about $24,200 for that final quarter from April through June to fund the position, but then on an ongoing basis, the expense is $97,600. Just want to be fully aware of today, this year, right now, and then also ongoing. And the ongoing we would be able to incorporate into the next year's and ongoing budgets as well. The position has been vacant since December of 2018. We do have a backlog of fire inspections, and The position would also increase just public safety overall and assist with code enforcement, as hopefully we get our building inspector also in the door. So if you have any questions, I'd like to pause here because I know Chief York is on the line, and I'm sure he can provide some additional commentary if you have questions regarding this position.
That is a position that has to go out for recruitment, or is that something that can be promoted from within the department?
We would probably do a full recruitment with external ability, but certainly anybody in-house that qualifies would be encouraged to participate in that recruitment.
Is there an advantage to anyone who applies within the department versus someone coming in from the outside?
They'd have some experience.
Just some like recruitment points or something like that?
Right. No, not necessarily. I mean, you would know the department better. You would know the expectations better. You would maybe know the city better, especially if they're already here working within the department. But there's no extra like points given to anybody internally as a candidate. Good question.
It'd be part of the same process, interview and scores and the opportunity to score that all out against any external candidates. And of course, the best candidate would always win.
Any questions? Chief York?
Chief York, did you want to add any additional commentary maybe that I missed?
This is just a very, this is a highly needed position within the department, not only for the fire prevention aspect, but also for the command and control and administrative aspect within the department. Currently, as Carlo's already mentioned, we have a lot of development going on, and I'm fulfilling both roles right now between plan checks, inspections, just review of development. It takes up quite a bit of time, so this position not only is going to allow an individual to devote a full-time effort towards the fire prevention aspect, but it will also free up some of my available time to take care of the pending administrative issues that are part of this position. I really appreciate your consideration of this.
Any questions for Chief York from the council? No, I think it's probably a needed position simply because if anything happened to Chief York, we have to have some backup, and I'm sure there are other people that could maybe step in temporarily, but this would give him another individual that would be in a position to do that. Not that we think anything's going to happen to you, but, you never know.
You're always
So-
planning for the worst.
Yeah, no.
Planning
Well, I
with my
always plan
replacement last
for-
summer.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And so, but I also think that we have some issues with some vacant buildings around town. We have some other things going on. So we certainly, I think, need the backup and the proactive look at any kind of plan checks, any kind of other inspections that we need out there. I think the city needs all of that. So certainly, I would be supportive of the position.
I certainly think one aspect that definitely bears notification. When we had a fire marshal, every business in our city, every business with a business license within our city was inspected once per year, whether it was a physical inspection or a self-inspection. That inspection was done to make sure that all businesses were in compliance with the California Fire Code. And since the departure of our fire marshal, we've had to revert back to the old system that we had, where we are only performing business inspections whenever there's a change of ownership or change of location. So existing businesses, unless they get reported or somebody notices a fire hazard, they're just being topically reviewed at this point. There's no physical inspections, and that's something that will immediately change upon the appointment of this position.
Okay. If there are no other questions, then Carla?
Yes. Thank you, Chief York. So the other item that we're requesting to include within this year's budget is the $20,000 increase for replacement of outdated information technology equipment. Staff went ahead and just did a comprehensive review of what we have. We have a lot of workstations, about 120, and a lot of other auxiliary equipment. And each one of them has a life cycle of about 5 years. And a lot of them are more a little bit more than 5 years, and certainly giving us some glitches, maybe a little bit slower than they need to be. Armando's having to constantly kind of do some updates and improvements in order to get them to work properly. This would likely be an ongoing expenditure if we really wanted to keep up with an ongoing plan of properly replacing our information technology, especially as it just continues to, the use of it continues to increase year over year as we try to automate more, provide more resources, online capabilities, internally being able to do things electronically within the city. But for this year, Armando says that we can go ahead and update some of the stuff that's really outdated and get that going. And it's in various departments, so it's not just in one particular department. There's a sprinkle of items that need to be done.
Okay.
Tyler, how are we managing the extra work required to do all this? Is there like a huge demand for Armando, like extra overtime hours, or?
Armando's been putting in a lot of times, but, and particularly since we're going through the in-code, I'm drawing a blank here.
Implementation.
Implementation, thank you. English is my second language. So yes, he has been putting in a lot of hours. And one of the, not to get ahead of ourselves, but we're going to be looking at that in the new budget cycle to try to get Armando some help. So.
Yeah, I was just looking at, we were implementing all these systems and updating all this stuff. I was just curious to see when we were going to bring in help for him.
Yeah. Armando and finance they've been going at it with hands and feet and everything else for a
He's still
long
got all
time.
his hair, though. The hair still looks good.
Yeah.
Yes. So if both of those adjustments were to get approved and the ones that we mentioned earlier, so where you see all of the yellow arrows, those are the adjustments, all of the adjustments, the revenues, the expenses, and those two additional items that we just talked about. So if all three of them were to get approved, the budget surplus would remain at $96,882 for this fiscal year. And so that really concludes the report. I just want to give you a little update on kind of what we have on the horizon for our finance updates. We are actively implementing the American Rescue Plan Act fund and program that you approved in December. Our financial statements are also being finalized, and so are a few of the external audits. We are working already in next year's budget for 22-23. We've started that process internally. We're also working a 10-year long-range financial plan model that we could bring to the council, hopefully the first meeting in March, to kind of kick off our anticipated budgetary discussions for this coming fiscal year. And I'm also working on updating our purchasing policy and then a new water service policy that is derived from a Senate Bill 19998, I believe from 2018, and that basically we have to have a policy in place before we start doing any shutoffs again, and so we're actively working on that as well.
Okay.
So, oops, sorry, no end page. That concludes my report. I'm happy to take any additional questions you might have.
I may already know the answer, but I'm assuming that we still have our reserves in place.
Yes.
And this is a budget surplus based upon budget figures, but our reserve is budgeted in also. So I think we already still have that. And also,
Yes.
I believe we have money in reserve for Main Street that we may work on in the future here within the next year or two or whatever.
Yes,
Whenever
that's
that
correct.
becomes, so that's still in reserve also.
Yes.
I knew the answer, but I wanted to ask the question, just for the public's information, so that we know that Brawley fiscally looks pretty good. We want to be careful because COVID's, still out there and we still have things going on. But overall, we appreciate the report, and I think it's a good report. And so, any other questions from city council members? No. Anything from staff? Okay, now you need an action on this, right? So I'll need a
Yes.
motion to approve these changes.
What's the
And
item?
receive and file the report, right, but also to approve the adjustments that you just mentioned to us.
The two additional, yes.
The two additional adjustments.
So we're looking on,
Mayor, this is George. I'll make the motion to approve and make the adjustments.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, I have a second from Luke. Any questions?
no.
Okay, so we kind of know the fire marshal and then the 20,000 for the ITA upgrades, and that's the two changes.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, with that in mind, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you, Carlo.
She's not going anywhere.
I know.
Got another one.
Okay, item 5C, discussion and potential action to approve resolution number 2022, resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, authorizing the submittal of applications for all Cal Recycle grants for which the City of Brawley is eligible, and authorize the city manager to execute all grant documents for Senate Bill 1383, Local Assistance Grant Program, presented by Carlo Romero, Finance Director. Items on 34 and 37.
Thank you again. So if you recall, back in November and December, we had a lot of discussions about organic waste recycling. It wasn't any of our favorite topics. We even had to unfortunately have a rate increase for our commercial customers because their compliance with this new state mandate that's unfunded is effective January 1st, 2022. Residential customers, their compliance is effective January 1st, 2024, which is also around the corner. So the states recognize that the cities might need some additional help in order to get this kind of off the ground. There you go, sorry. And so what they did was they are providing a non-competitive, which means every agency that just applies, go ahead, they are awarded the grant. So it's non-competitive. So the state, Brawley's eligibility is $36,862. I did already file for the grant application, but it's not fully eligible until this resolution is passed. So if it doesn't get passed, then it becomes null and void, that we already submitted for it. The expenses are noted to the right, kind of some of the expenses that the city would be incurring: staff time, community outreach, radio ads, printed materials, collaboration with the external agencies and residents, and then any potential purchase of maybe that small bucket we talked about during some of the meetings in order to house some of the waste recycling on people's countertops. The expenses go from April 1st, 2022, so nothing that, we haven't expensed anything yet, but we'd have to wait until that date to get started. So it's a full 2 years. And the grant application, as I mentioned, was already submitted, but the resolution is due by March 1st, which we have another 30 days. If it's adopted today, we'd just go ahead and submit that, and then we'd be awarded. Now, the resolution does say all grants, because there is a phase 2 to this potential grant, but they haven't came out with the parameters of what the application process would look like, and that application would be due, I believe, in September. And so this resolution would also cover us if we're eligible to receive that grant funding to go ahead and apply for that, and we would provide you an update with probably a budget report if we were eligible for that revenue.
Okay.
So that really concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions from the council members? Any questions from staff? If not, it sounds like it's a no-lose situation. We get the money, and maybe we can help some of the residents, and maybe we can help us in the whole process with this. I think this is going to be a really tough program to implement, and so I'm looking. I don't know how we're going to get it all to work out, but we're going to try our best. So I think that's the way it has to be. It is an unfunded mandate, and it is something that I think the public's going to have to be encouraged to comply, and I think it's going to take a lot of encouragement.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, yes.
I forgot to mention that when we submitted for the grant, we did have an internal discussion as how it would be allocated. So it's 30% we put for staff time, and the other 70 would go back to outreach or residents or any type of material that was eligible for the expense.
Okay.
I recall that in one of the items when they talked about paper waste, that if it was soiled, then it'd be required to be submitted with the organic waste, right? Perhaps it'd be a good idea to reach out to our legislators and go back on this plastic bag law because if we just put it in paper bags, it's a real simple. I think we're overthinking this, but we just need to change that rule back to, they got to give us paper bags again at Vaughn's instead of those plastic bags.
Yeah. Instead of those real thick plastic bags that we use now to replace those real thin plastic bags. That
I really think we're overthinking this. It's probably much easier than we're anticipating, but anyways.
Okay.
Motion to approve item 5C.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the resolution. Do I hear a second?
This is George, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, George. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, Carla. Okay, now then, we'll go to item 5D, which is discussion and potential action to adopt resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, approving submittal for an application to the California Department of Housing and Community Development for funding under the Home Investment Partnership Program for the construction of a new 32-unit income-restricted senior apartment complex located at 151 Southeastern Avenue in Brawley, California, presented by Carlo Romero, Finance Director.
Thank you again. One more. So I'd like to do a quick mic check with Cameron Johnson. He should be on Zoom. Cameron is a partner with AMG Associates, which is a developer that is asking for the loan program. So Cameron, can you hear me? And can you do a quick mic check for me?
I can. Sorry about that. I was a little bit delayed. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. So this loan is different than the one that we talked to you about in September and October of 2021. Just to give you a quick update, that loan that was presented to you by Chelsea Development for a development impact fee deferral, that was not approved. It did not go through with its funding, and so if they wanted to have any type of other structure or assistance from the city, they would have to come back to the city council for that particular project, which was the Adams Apartments development, in order for that to happen. And this one is different. It's not a deferral of fees. The project would be paying all of the fees up front that are owed to the project at the time that the development is done. This is a loan structure. And so what happens is that the city applies with the developer for the loan. The city gets the funding. We give it to the developer. When it's paid back, that funding comes back to the city, and the city is able to use it for other programs. So it's a completely different structure. And Cameron is like the expert in that. And so if you have any specific questions, I'll let him answer those. But I'm going to kind of give you a quick update. Oops, wrong one. Sorry, Armando. I probably should have just merged them together. There you go. So I'm putting on my development hat now. Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's see. So this particular program is given or available by the California Housing and Community Development Program. It's a home investment program, aka the NOFA program. The loan amount could be up to $7,150,000. It says up to because it really depends on what it is that they end up approving. And the applications are due by March the 10th, 2022. So there are several forms, and AMG, the developer, is going to take care of being the lead in submitting all of those forms, making sure that the city understands them, reviewing them, and us signing off on them. It is based on the concept of a 55-year loan to help obtain the funding for the project itself, and it's secured by a promissory note and a deed of trust against the property. All of those promissory notes and deed of trust would be developed if and when the loan is approved. So kind of don't want to put the cart before the horse. We need to go ahead and have the approval and the ability to apply for the loan, and then if and when, then we come back and give you all of the nitty-gritty details on the promissory note and deed of trust that will also be approved by the council. It would require us as a city to track this and disclose it on our financial statements as it being an outstanding loan, and it would be paid from the residual receipts of the project itself. The proposed terms is for a low-income housing project. So we'll talk about the project a little bit. So this project was first entitled in 2015 by the city, and it was reapproved in early 2021. So it has been a project that we've been trying to get off the ground for quite some time. It is restricted income project for seniors specifically, and the developer has secured 8 HUD Section 8 vouchers already for the project, meaning that's to serve the really, really low income people that are severely underfunded for housing, availability for housing. And it also does count towards our RENA numbers for affordable housing requirement if it was to get built. The construction is a new construction. It's 32 total units with an on-site manager as well. It's 26 one-bedrooms and 6 two-bedrooms. The facility will also have a community building, picnic tables, barbecue, and some pergolas, an exercise room, laundry facility, and a business center that the residents can use. And just to give you a view of where the project is, it's south of the Family Dollar Tree, kind of on Main and southeastern Avenue there, where the red kind of dot is on the middle left of the page. This is a site map of phase 1. There is a second phase to this development, but phase 1 would be the one that the developer is currently actively seeking funding for with the loan program. And then these are some elevations on the proposed development that were approved. And Cameron, I'm going to turn it over to you for any additional commentary. I'm happy to go back to any slides as well.
Great, thank you, Carla. And good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Cameron Johnson, AMG Associates. I stood before you guys many times before on some of our projects in the past, including the Mayland Street Apartments, Ocotillo Springs, and the old mobile home park there on First Street of Mayland. But I really appreciate your consideration. This is a project that I've been working on since 2014. And I know there's significant demand for low-income senior housing in the city of Brawley. It's just been a real challenge for us to find the funding to get it built. These are extremely competitive funds that we're going after. But this is the first time it's really opened up where I think we have a really good shot at securing home dollars, which is, as Carlo mentioned, upwards of $7.1 million of federal funding that we can bring into the city of Brawley that will always stay in Brawley. So as she said, it will eventually get paid back over time to the city, and you can utilize that for the housing programs. But one of the things I'm really excited about with this particular project are those 8 vouchers that we were able to secure from the Housing Authority, because I've got senior projects that we're building throughout California. I can tell you one of the things that often gets overlooked is what happens to our elderly when a spouse passes away. One of our projects in Northern California, there are 2 80-year-old women who have never been homeless their whole life, but their spouse passed away who was the sole income earner, and they have no money, and now they're in a shelter. And those are the people that we really need to get housing for the most, in my opinion. So that's what I think those 8 vouchers will help with here. It doesn't matter if they make $30, we can still get them in housing. So yeah, this is a project we're extremely excited about. I think we have a really competitive chance of getting these home dollars, and if all goes well, we would receive that award this summer. We would then subsequently apply for tax credits later in the year, and we can begin construction probably sometime around spring of 2023. And then we would eventually make our way towards the second phase, which is another, I believe, 24 units. So it would be a total of 56 senior units. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about the funding or project.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
As you chime in, Councilmember Donnie Wharton. I wanted, just with the on-site manager, can you just talk through a little bit more on what kind of mitigates? I think, there's no doubt, or at least I'll express my opinion of, the need for senior affordable housing is very clear. Obviously up to and including in the city of Brawley, but I would even argue maybe nationwide. And it's also one of the fastest growing segments of really our communities, right? I think the number is something close to 10,000 citizens in this country are turning 65 a day. And so with all that said, I see the growing need. You can't get behind the 8 ball on this, but what on the management side keeps these projects I've seen in the past where you'll see others, you'll see, kids, you'll see, other next of kin, all those kind of, moving in, and it ends up, kind of being overtaken. So just talk to the management of that, how we prevent that from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we use, nationally recognized property management companies. There'll be a 24-hour resident manager that will also have an office within the community center, and which is open, most of the day. And the nice thing about this project, being it's a tax credit project, is that we have multiple audits throughout the year from not just the tax credit agency, but from the tax credit investor. Because if we go out of compliance at any time, they're at risk of losing their tax credit. So which is a major investment for them. So you'll see quarterly inspections checking out units. I mean, we do criminal background checks. I mean, we can be selective on the people that we bring in here because there is such demand, like you had mentioned. We don't want to bring in convicted felons or anything like that. But this isn't meant to be a mix. This is meant to be for seniors 62 years and older. Children, grandchildren, obviously welcome to visit, but yeah, it's not. I mean, typically what we see in these projects probably is an average age, maybe 70 years old, and it's generally probably, I would say 65% single elderly women. But we have strong resident management, and again, we have to do that because if we don't, and we fall out of compliance, and people find out there are children living there, or the project isn't being taken care of, we're not following guidelines and regulations. I mean, we risk losing our whole livelihoods because that one deal could basically kill our whole business model with doing these types of projects. And we have over 150 of these successfully built throughout the Western United States. So it's something that we take very dear to heart. And we make sure they are properly managed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Question on the, it looks like ingress is through Southeastern Avenue. And that's the only entry point for the complex, is that correct?
I believe right now that is the only entry, but then when we build the second phase, I think that the phases will tie together, and I believe there'll be 2 entry points when we build phase 2. The nice thing about these senior projects is we find about maybe half our tenants drive. A lot of them rely on local transportation. So it's not going to be a huge impact, I think, to the traffic necessarily. And I don't have the site plan in front of me. I think we've got pretty adequate parking there. I think maybe.
My only concern about the parking, and I think it's needed for senior citizens, especially low-income senior citizens in our community. My only concern about the parking that I noticed is some of the parking is relatively, well, and I don't know dimensions totally from looking at the site map, but some of it is fairly a long distance away from some of the residential facilities. That could be a problem for seniors. I don't know that there's any way to mitigate that, but some of it is a little further away than what I would like it to be. However, I think there may be some issues with putting it any closer based upon the site plan that you have. So I think you need to be aware that could be a problem for some seniors, because seniors tend to have, either if they're using a walker, even if they're driving, they may have some difficulty ambulating or being able to perambulate to their location, to their residence. And so I would be a little concerned about that. I'm also want to know, I'm assuming that the access areas around the facility are wide enough for a fire truck with ladders and everything to get in there, because with seniors, there could be, with the fire potential, there could be some issues there, and I'm hoping that meets all our requirements and that everything's right there for the fire department and for any kind of other emergency medical that needs to get in there. I'm assuming that it is, but I think we have some complexes where the streets are very narrow, or some of the streets are narrow, and that's posed some problems for us. So just keep that in mind as you go into the construction phase, that we want to make sure everybody's safe that's in there.
No, I appreciate those comments, and the project was vetted through by staff and fire, did approve the layout and the turning radius. I do want to also say that, the reason we kind of designed these sites this way for the seniors is with more of a courtyard feel, is with all the doors, the entrances on the inside, because it just creates a more safer environment for seniors. They can, congregate within the internal structure of the building, which just makes them feel safe. So we like to generally structure these projects this way, with parking on the perimeter and the units on the inside. And it just brings a real community feel for the tenants, and they really tend to appreciate that. That is a good point on the parking, and we could look at potentially maybe reorienting some of the spaces, but it is a really tight site.
Yes.
So it's really hard to get it all in there, but I think we have, just based on looking at here, we have probably a good 20 spaces up against the building, which I actually think would I don't think you'll have 31 restricted units. I'd be hard pressed to believe we'll have more than 20 people that actually drive there. A lot of these elderly seniors on fixed incomes don't have vehicles. I would say we could probably see about 65% of our senior projects with vehicles. So I think we should be in good shape as far as the parking goes.
Okay, where is the nearest?
Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
I can just, and with respect to that, and considering that several of the people may not be, able to drive, I think it would be a good idea to at least consult with ICTC with respect to the Gold Line to see if they can route a
Where's the
bus stop
nearest
there
bus
too.
stop?
And that's on Eastern Avenue, so it's a little further up, but there could be that possibility as well, because that route will take you to the different services throughout the city.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Especially when you do the 2 units, if you could have a bus stop that's closer. I don't know where the closest bus stop is to that facility as it would
It's
currently
south
be.
of that.
South
It's
of that.
But
Okay.
it comes off, it could go around, loop around, and then come back through Southeastern Avenue, so.
Okay, somewhere close, yeah.
It's doable, it just needs to be vetted through.
Okay. So those would be my concerns, at least at this point in time. Thank you, George.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Donnie, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not cutting somebody off there. One more question directed more at Carla, and it doesn't have to be, I'm not necessarily looking for a long answer. I'm assuming it's been vetted, but for my edification on, it was mentioned that the kind of the loan structure will book, I guess, on our balance sheet as a liability. We're going to carry that. Is there, how does that work as far as the city financials? Will reflect the liability, but the asset as well, or how does that work?
So it's not recorded in the general fund. It is recorded in a special revenue fund, which is where the loan would be repaid to as well, and it's restricted for those housing programs. But what we do is we book a receivable as an outstanding loan, and we also book a deferral, so a liability account. So it in essence has no net effect on your balance sheet. And then when the revenues are received, then they're booked as revenue, and then increase the cash. And then that loan balance continues to be reduced by whatever those payments are each year.
Very good. No, I appreciate that. I think that pretty much leads to more of for anybody that might be evaluating this project or a project like this, the kind of the risk versus, reward. But I wanted to make that clear. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Carlo, this is, also, he mentioned that through violations, this group could lose its eligibility. Is the city liable in any way, shape, or form where it could possibly cost us any money?
Cameron, do you want to try to answer that first? So,
Generally, what we can do in these cases, we can do an indemnification agreement that if anything did happen, that we would indemnify the city. In the event that there was some type of violation. What I can just tell you is our history. We've been doing this for 25 years. We're one of the largest in the country. We've never had a violation. And, but again, if we need to, we can consider some type of indemnity. It's something we've done before for cities.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the city isn't on the hook for a single cent. There's no reason for it. Yeah, I don't know, Cameron, if you remember me, I was on the planning commission when this project and the mainland project came before us, which was a while ago. And there I had some of the same questions and some of the same concerns, including an on-site manager. And so I kind of been watching that mainland project, and I know that the managers come and go, and I'm sure there are different reasons for that. But I just want to make sure that we have a tight leash on that and that we have that. There had been those issues here with some of the other developments that had been set up to help the elderly, and obviously, that it didn't turn out that way, and it became a nuisance for those in the vicinity. Yeah, that's my only concern, Carlos. I just want to make sure that the city isn't liable, and that somewhere down the line in 30 years or 20 years, the city has to put up money out of our general fund to cover anything. You just never know. So I just want to make sure that we're real tight on that.
okay.
And I appreciate those comments. And again, I just want to reiterate that. So these funds come to the city as a grant, and then, you guys are the lender to us for the borrower, and it's our responsibility to get that paid back to you over time. I mean, it is a soft loan. I will say that these senior projects, they're very challenging to even to make them feasible, because they're driven to very low income seniors. There's very little income that comes in off of them. The vouchers will help that, so there will definitely be some income. I don't imagine it being a significant amount of money, but, over time, hopefully that will slowly get paid down. And then one other comment I'd like to make is, of all the projects that we manage, which are farm worker housing, family housing, permanent supportive housing for the homeless, and elderly housing, generally the elderly projects are the least impact to the community, management. They're the easiest projects for us to manage, because we're not necessarily dealing with a lot of children. We're not dealing with overcrowded households. There's not a criminal element typically. The seniors they shop local. They're generally good tenants. There's very little turnover. The biggest turnover we actually have in our projects and senior projects is through debt, actually. Once they get in the unit, they stay in that unit generally, in some cases, for the rest of their lives. We've had seniors in there for 15 years in some of our projects. So I think the project will be a great addition to the city of Brawley. And like I said, I really hope that we can win this funding, assuming you guys support the application. And I'll do my best to make sure we are competitive.
And one last thing, I'm sure it was probably covered, but mention it again, is that the RENA mandate for affordable housing, this does cover the lower end of those. Just want to reiterate that. And there are some admin fees for staff time and administrating this grant that would be coming to the city as well.
Do we have any other loans that are structured this way through the city?
We do have one other loan that is structured. It was done back in 2004 with the Elks Senior Apartment. Very similar, was for $3.4 million. Same home loan, same program with Chelsea Development.
And it's the one over towards the hospital, correct, I think? No? Maybe I'm wrong.
The Elks?
Maybe
Yeah,
I'm wrong.
Yeah, the one near,
The Elks
north of
one
the
is
hospital.
over north of the
Yes, I
hospital.
believe
How,
so.
how is that program coming along?
We have not received any payments on any of we have 3 outstanding that are kind of related. So there's 2 development impact fee ones and then one of the home loan ones. But we haven't seen any payments for any of them. But it's very typical that we don't get any until years 15 through 20. Remember the developer mentioned that in the September
Yes.
presentation.
Yeah,
but
the Elks Senior Apartments, those I think were, you said 2004, so
those should be
almost
coming.
18 years in.
Yes. And it's with Chelsea. And so what I did when we were preparing this year's financial statements is I did a comprehensive review. And with Tyler's knowledge and knowing that there's some other ones that were outstanding, we prepared new schedules, and we've reached out to each one of the developers, letting them know and confirming the amounts that are due, and basically asking when do you anticipate this revenue to be coming to the city. So we haven't heard back yet from any of them. I just sent out the letters about a week ago. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
I guess that is the concern with a project like this, when the revenues are very, very tight, that you may never get that money paid back.
I don't know about never, but it would certainly be longer.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe you're 30, it may take longer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. With that, I think we'll see what the wish of the council is. Do we have a motion for the resolution to submit the application to the California Department of Housing and Community Development?
I want to make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve this
Okay.
item.
I have a motion from Councilmember Castro. Do I have a second?
Councilmember Nava, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other further discussion on this item? If not, then let's have the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 1 nay. And abstentions? No. So, motion carries. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go to item 5E. Discussion and potential action to approve the proposed additions to the street naming requirements presented by Andrea Montano, planning technician. There she is.
Council members, mayor, so the item you guys have before you is to approve, like you said, the additions to street naming requirements. We had a request to change the name at Los Olivos Drive. And when we were going through, we realized we don't actually have procedures to rename streets. We only have procedures to name them. So what you will see is the proposed additions that I made in red to our current street naming requirements. As far as fees would go, the fiscal impact would be that we can charge fees for services approved by you guys on a cost recovery basis, since we don't actually have a set fee for it. But that's something that we can look through and include when we do our formal fee study in the spring of 2022. I don't know if you guys want me to go through all the changes or if you have any questions head on that we would maybe discuss that first.
If I could, and thank you, Andrea, I could add on a little bit here. So there was a request, like Andrea said, that came in for a name. How do you change the name? And our research has showed that there isn't a process. So the hope here is that this is just a draft for you all that Andrea did a very good job on presenting. We're looking for recommendations, changes, or just your opinion on this. If you want to see this type of process memorialized. So this is just, like I said, a draft for your consideration, and we're open to any changes that you see fit.
You know, I brought this up. I asked that. I think I had a request a while ago, and I've seen some street name changes, but obviously streets that had no impact on any properties whatsoever. So, but I did read through this, and I did like the approach that they take in San Diego. Because one of the discussions that I had with Mayor Pro Tem Nava was that obviously there are associated costs with some of the, especially the paperwork, and all the name changes that are attached to, the long trail. So anybody who's looking to do this should obviously, pay for the cost of it. And I totally agree with that. We should have the ability, but then I think that whoever is looking for that, any organization or individual that's looking to change the street names, should have the ability as well to come up with the money that is required for that, and the city shouldn't have to, put up, at the very least, the signs and the costs, of the administrative costs, so.
Currently, if this were to be adopted as is, we would be recovering staff time, materials, et cetera. And then in the future, we would come back to you when we get to the fee study to set, maybe a flat fee or whatever the consideration of the council at that time. But currently, the way this is written, we would collect our costs that we put into this right now, including the actual signs and staff time.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember, not Mayor Pro Tem, no, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
A comment. And so we have had a street naming committee in the past. That is probably now defunct, but there was members, I had appointed one many years back, and so I think council, if I recall correctly, council members appointed a member to represent them. And so we've had some process. This is much more formalized, and on occasion we are approached to rename streets. We did one recently with Willard, the stretch of Willard that changed. So that was a recent example, and so there's also parks that have been renamed over the past 30 years or so. So they've seen name changes as well. And I'm sure at some point there will be a request from Mayor Couchman to rename the city, after him. So that may be
Governor Sam Couchman, yes, sure, absolutely.
No,
yes.
Wapo.
El Wapo. It's El Wapo.
That could be one of the corners in Brawley.
Oh, boy.
At any rate, I
probably
think it's a
deserve
good
that, huh?
process to have. It doesn't come up very often, but I also think the street system works here in the city of Brawley. There are reasons for requesting name changes, but I do like the fact that, without getting too long-winded about this, I do like the fact that there are some restrictions and there is cost associated, because I can imagine if there wasn't, there would be multiple requests, and for us to vet through that and go through the process and see what qualifies, what doesn't, and that kind of thing would be very, you know, it's a long process. So at any rate, I'd be in favor of moving forward with something.
Okay. Any other comments from council members? This is your time. Okay, I have a few comments. My concern is with existing streets and renaming. We've had a few of those that have gone through. I think that we need a more strict approval for those types. For the uninhabited or new, that could be streamlined as a process a little bit better than the inhabited or the already occupied streets. I think you're talking about on inhabited streets, you're talking about, it's at our discretion, the sole discretion of the city council at a public hearing. The petition must be circulated to a majority of property owners, and the petition must have the support of more than 50% of the property owners. I think that should be increased. I don't necessarily agree with just simply 50%, because if 49% of them don't want it and 50% of them want it, we're going to make a lot of unhappy people out there.
Perhaps
And I think
two-thirds at
that
least?
I think maybe a 2/3 to maybe 75%, somewhere around 2/3 to 75% should have to be approved before we change the name of an existing street where people are already located on. Also, I'm concerned about the wording there. The petition shall have the support of more than 50% of the business, of 50% of property owners, and it probably should say property owners and business owners in zones not considered residential per the municipal code. Why would we differentiate between residential and business? I have some concerns there. I think it should be the same, no matter whether it's residential or business, whatever that might be. Because I don't think, what's the percentage of approval for residential? There's nothing there, I don't think, on that. Maybe there is. Is there?
Yeah, no.
No. So I would like to see that redone a little bit, maybe some changes made there. And other than that, I do think we need a procedure in place. I do think that if we get too many requests, I think we've got a problem, because everybody wants to change the streets every other week, then that can be a problem. I think for certain individuals, I think we changed Cotton Rosser Drive because that was an individual historically that we felt was important to the cattle call and to the arena. Other people that we name streets after, I think, have to be kind of vetted through the council, and we want to make sure that we don't overdo this. New streets, I don't have as much a problem with. However, we don't want weird names either. So, I mean, there are some things that we have to be careful of in terms of something that might offend someone or something that might be inappropriate. And so I think we need to look at all of those things in here. But I would like to see some changes made to this. So maybe we could bring it back and not approve it at this point in time, and then bring it back with some changes made.
I think that 75% requirement, whether it be commercial or residential, I think that would, prevent from like a name change every other month. So I know what you're getting at. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but I think that would do that. I think that would take care of that issue there, and residents or people in that area would have to approve it. And
Yes,
so,
I think
we don't
it's-
have that much turnover.
And one of the reasons why I say that is, a lot of us, if you still use checks like I do as a dinosaur, your residence address is on those checks. If you're using credit cards, your mailing address and everything has to be changed. Your driver's license may have a different address on it. Bills that are paid, people identify with your address throughout mailing. A lot of Amazon and all that stuff delivers to a certain address that you might have on file. All that would require changes. Some of that's easy to do, some of that's not so easy to do. So that would be my concern, along with Ramon, I think, for the 75% of the people agreeing. Even then, I might have some concerns about changing the name of an existing street unless it's something having to do with something very, very special. And that would be, that might
Yeah.
be something that we might want to look at as a difference. I think it's at our sole discretion. I think it's at the city council's discretion to change the name.
The way it's
But,
written now,
but
yes.
we want to be very careful about that. Okay.
So, Mayor, just for clarification, those comments, changes requested, that's all for the inhabited streets.
Yes.
Is there council consensus on the uninhabited streets, or would you wish any changes there? our goal is just to bring it back at one time and. you know.
I think that's okay. The uninhabited streets, we may have to visit this a couple different times depending upon what kind of circumstances we get in, and things may change. But I think for the uninhabited streets, I'm not as concerned about the uninhabited, but I think we still need to be careful because people may own property on uninhabited streets where they would be opposed to a street change. So we need to take that in consideration. We had the public hearing. Hopefully those people would come forward and tell us of their concerns, and then we could make an educated decision based upon what we hear from the public that may own the property even though it's uninhabited. But like new housing divisions that do street names and stuff, I think we could probably talk to the developer and have them change some names if they wish to, or if we could ask them to do so, they probably would be willing to do so in most cases.
I think here under, item, number 2 on inhabited streets, it says right there, they all application is signed and authorized by all property owners, so I think that takes care of that part.
Yes, okay, then that covers it.
Uninhabited lane, Mr. Mayor?
Do we need what?
We need to name Main Street
Uninhabited
after
lane.
Sam Couchman Drive.
Sam
the
Couchman
sign.
Drive, Sam Couchman.
Governor Sam Couchman.
I don't think so, no,
No?
no,
Well, I tried, okay.
thanks.
Won't fit on the sign.
It won't fit on the sign. Thanks. Thanks, George. I appreciate that vote of confidence there. Normally, I prefer to name things after people that are already gone, so I don't think I'm ready yet.
That's no fun.
Okay. Hey, so we're gonna bring this back? Okay, so that'll be fine.
Yes,
If
ma'am.
everybody's in agreement with that, all the council members? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's staff direction. Okay, item number 6 of our agenda, departmental reports. Monthly staff report for January 2022, presented by Shirley Benias, Personnel and Risk Management.
Good job, Andrea, by the way. We didn't even say, like, she put all that work
Yes,
into
thank you,
it.
Andrea, very
She
much.
did great. I love your background, by the way.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes. I can't see you,
I'm
though.
sorry. It doesn't look like my camera wants to work. My apologies, Mayor.
Okay, no, that's perfectly okay. We can hear you, though.
Oh, very good, sir. Council members, mayor, staff, Shirley Benias, Personnel and Risk Management. Yes, as Carla stated earlier in the meeting, we currently actually have now 12 openings. We will have a wastewater treatment plant maintenance workers start in a couple weeks. We finally did get that recruitment through. But it has been a struggle at best to get qualified applicants for these many positions. We will work with Andrea on posting on Facebook. We are going to work on also posting them within Indeed and any other avenues that we can utilize to get staff in the door. We have a lot of work to do, and we're missing a few set of hands to help us out. Of course, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from council members for Shirley? Doesn't look like it, Shirley. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, item number 7 is an informational report, record of building permits for November 2021 in the city of Brawley, prepared by Oscar Escalante, interim building official. And you have that in your packet on the back page. And it looks like a 2-page document, quite a bit of
Oh,
activity.
it's very nice.
Quite a bit of activity. Any comment from city council members? I think it's just an informational item. No comment. Okay.
Yeah, I
Oh,
do
go
have a
ahead, go
question.
ahead.
I noticed some of this. I mean, are the permits, the cost of the permits based on the cost of the improvements? How do we factor in the cost of the permits?
Oscar, are you on the line? Can you help me out on that one?
Just curious, it's like, what does it cost? Why does it cost so much? And then if so, if it's factored, if it's dependent on the cost of improvements, we have so many as say NA. So I'm just curious. I would like to know the process, how
I
this
don't want to
works out.
misspeak.
Is Oscar in on there?
Yeah, I see his name up there, so.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good
We can
evening.
hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Trying to get the video to work too.
If it doesn't, that's okay.
Okay, yeah, the permits are based on valuations of the projects and line items. That's how we come up with the totals on them. Percentages are charged through a formula that we use to break down the valuation, factoring in plan check fees, and strictly line items after that. But it's a fairly simple process to get through, but that's how we come up with the amounts for each of the permits.
Okay, yeah, because I was looking at where it says so many that say NA. I'm just curious to see why it says NA, and if so, does that affect the cost of the permit?
Well, when you see something NA, it would be particular to certain types of activities.
Such as a repair, Oscar?
Yeah, repairs, it's gonna be, some of the permits are no fee for certain utilities, depending on the right-of-way requirements.
Yeah, so it's like basically not adding any value to the property.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Correct, and if they do, then of course the county will come back, reassess, and add additional tax to that.
Correct, yes, the county gets a record of everything that's being done, and that's how they adjust property taxes.
Perfect. Thank you. Just wonder why Hanby Construction
Okay.
is all these NAs.
Okay.
Come on now.
Any other questions?
It's a joke.
If not, then we can go to item number 8, which is city council member reports, and I guess we'll start with Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a whole lot to report other than I was pleased to be able to attend an event that One World Beef sponsored and hosted at the fairgrounds. They brought in Dr. Temple Grandin, a very well-known, she works with animals. She helps design slaughterhouses, and she has autism, and she has a very unique way of looking at animal husbandry. And so she was there to speak at that event, and it was a dinner, and they had probably 400 people there, 4-H kids, FFA kids, autism support groups, and it was very well done, a very good event, and really enjoyed what she had to say and the way she looks at things. And she did help design part of the One World Beef slaughterhouse when it was first built back in the early 2000s. But it was kind of a once in a lifetime chance to go and hear her speak. So I was really honored to be there for that. And that completes my report.
Okay. Ramon?
Yes, just a couple of things. I've been talking to a lot of our folks here in Brawley, our residents, or it's a better word than, citizens, just our people.
President.
And just let everybody know, I mean, everything that comes to me, I immediately send it to our city manager, and I appreciate, your quick response to a lot of those items, especially everywhere that I go. One of the huge complaints that I get now is speeding pretty much small streets, big streets, wide streets, whatever, especially on Malin. So I appreciate you guys putting that up there right away. And obviously, folks are seeing that the city has reacted and made changes, such as on the south side of Chavez Avenue, and putting up the stop signs and whatnot. And just just want to remind everyone to keep bringing those concerns forward so that the city can address it. Without your complaints or your concerns being brought up, we won't know. So appreciate that. The other thing was I went to Imperial Valley, and I apologize if I get this wrong, Justice Committee, I believe. Anyways, they awarded me, and along with a few others, a Stone of Hope, in honor of Martin Luther King and the work that we do in the community. So I was very honored to receive that, and obviously to be mentioned in the same breath as Dr. King. It was a pretty neat experience. So I just thank you for that, and that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Donnie Wharton, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of events, I think it's been a relatively low key, so looking forward to that. Hopefully, as we can work through this with COVID. But I do want to take just a minute, if I could, of my time here for the report out. I want to reference the cell tower. I think there was quite a bit of energy and effort put into that topic last year. And specifically, I think as council members are aware and staff's aware, and this is also a matter of public information and record, but the company Vertical Bridge that I think spent quite a bit of time in our council chambers is now bringing suit against the city, and I think in essence legally trying to push us into either revisiting the cell tower by force, by legal force. So I just wanted to just publicly, and I'm going to be reaching out maybe to some of the members of the public that were pretty vocal about it. I'm hoping in this report also that I would certainly urge my fellow council members to do the same. I know all of us had interaction on that, but now's the time to be vocal. Now's the time to come out. And I know, again, there was a pretty large swath of that neighborhood and members of the public that came out. We need that support so that this suit that ultimately I think can impact a large national brand like T-Mobile. And I think if some of you have been listening to the news, the 5G network in general at large is right now in a little bit of trouble with Department of Transportation, specifically with the FAA because of potential interference to its signal to things like radar altimeters. So I think there's already some poor press as it is, but community like Brawley, we do not need a lawsuit like this. And I'm still of the mindset that Vertical Bridge did not pursue other alternative locations. That was one of the large issues that came up. So I just want to put that out there, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of work, but I turn to my fellow council members. Now is the time. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything else to report. Hopefully next council will have some more going on. So I yield back to you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem George Nava.
Thank you. Well said, Councilmember Wharton. Listen, I am going to ask staff and our city manager and staff to see if we can develop a code enforcement status report like on a monthly basis just to see what we're working on. I know some things become potential litigation, so we can't share that during the public session, but I would like to see a code enforcement status report just to make sure that we're addressing the items that we're bringing forth and that they're being worked on. So we can do that. I'd appreciate it. Other than that, just want to thank the public for tuning in, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much. Okay, for my report, two things. It is the first day of Black History Month. February is Black History Month, and I think as an amateur local historian, I'm always cognizant of things that relate to history and the importance of people studying history and moving forward and not forgetting our history. Because I think if you forget it, someone has said in the past that you're doomed to repeat it, and I'm not so sure we want to repeat some of the things that have gone on in the history of this country or, say, the whole world over time. So I think we learn lessons from that. I think it's good that we understand history and we learn the things about history, and we give credit where credit is due. And so, but February is Black History Month. I ask everybody to support that effort. Also, the city manager and I went to the Naval Air Facility this last week. We were able to meet with both the commander, the captain at the Naval Air Facility, and the executive officer and other members of that organization. They were very welcoming to us. We did have an ability to have lunch at their galley out there, and also go out onto the runway and watch the Blue Angels perform and get a history of some of the Blue Angel activity out there. We also had a long meeting with them, and I think the purpose of their meeting was to ask what they could do for us as cities and locations, and we had most of the other cities there, and then also what they can do for us, but what we can do for them. And so that was kind of a roundtable discussion. We also had an admiral out of San Diego who's in charge of a lot of the training for the Navy, Navy flying, specifically off of aircraft carriers and that type of thing. And he addressed us also. There are some concerns out there, I think, on the part of our military that we're getting involved in some areas of the Ukraine. We're getting involved in China, and we're dealing with a lot of other into the Russian type situation. And so he did fill us in on some of the up-to-date things that they're talking about from the Navy side. So we're all concerned about all of those issues. One of the things that the Navy asked about us was what can they do for us? And so we told them that there's some mutual aid that we can identify, like mutual aid for fire suppression. If we need aid from them, they're willing to do that. They also do provide some other personnel from their facility come to different events at our city and other cities throughout the valley. And also, I had asked them, and they brought this up, that we may need to meet and coordinate a little bit more in terms of potential disaster mitigation and what would happen if there's a major earthquake and how do we mutually support each other, and what would happen if there's a major 100-year storm, which we sometimes have and have had in my lifetime here in the valley, or other types of emergency situations that might occur. And so we talked about that, and we talked about maybe having some meetings related to that. Their major concern, I think, too, was their ability to operate at that base. It does not appear there is any kind of move on to shut that base currently, as we saw a few years back. It looks like it's a very important facility for the Navy right now, and for other flight teams and other organizations that utilize that facility. They did talk about, let's see, what was the thing? They did talk a little bit about noise suppression for their purposes. There's a lot of talk and a lot of complaints, mainly affecting El Centro and Imperial as regards the airport there, where they do land helicopters, and helicopters from the Marine Corps do land there, and there is some issues with noise and late night activity, so they're going to have some discussions regarding that out there. We do have the Marines that fly over our city. There is a little bit of noise, but it's not like landing of helicopters next to your house. And so that's a concern. And it's not real close to the housing over there, but it's close enough where it does create a problem. So that's what they discussed. And I don't know if the city manager has anything to add to that, but that was pretty much our visit. It was a great visit. We spent about 5 hours out there, and we received a lot of information from them, and we were able to provide them with a lot of information about our cities and how we operate here. So that is my report. Thank you very much. Okay, and now we're going to move to the city attorney report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on Friday, we had the meeting of the League of Cities Appellate Advisory Committee. And just a brief report out of that meeting. I'm the county's region representative on that committee. There's a lot of litigation going on concerning cities' ability to exert local control over zoning. It's being eroded drastically by the state. There's going to be some litigation filed by some of the bigger cities to challenge some of these decisions. There was a very unfortunate appellate court decision that was out of San Diego that was unpublished but now has been published, which makes it binding law, and the League of Cities are joining a petition to have it unpublished again because it really takes a bite out of local control. I always try to make it clear to my fellow city attorneys that the problems that they have in San Francisco and Los Angeles are not the problems that we have in Imperial County, and the solutions that they come up with don't solve very many things here, and instead cause trouble. I pointed out at one meeting that we might as well be in different countries when you talk about what happens in San Francisco and what happens here. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's my report.
And I missed one thing. Thank you for the K Street cleanup. I did notice that gentleman has his home at the corner of K and South Imperial has been cleaned up somewhat. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was, and I did receive some citizen input on that. So thank you for your effort.
That's a challenging situation.
Yes, I know. They're all challenging.
Yeah.
That's more challenging, yes.
That one in particular is very
Gotcha.
difficult.
Okay, and with that, we'll move to the city clerk's report.
All I have is we still have a vacancy at the library. I've re-advertised in the Ivy Press on Sunday, and it's on our website. This is the second time that I've advertised, so, if you know of anybody that's interested in submitting an application, we'll be accepting applications until, February the 10th, I believe. That's all I have to report.
For clarification, that's for the library board.
Right.
The
Yes.
board-
Yes.
The board, library board, yes.
Does that require to be a Brawley resident?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, well, we certainly encourage individuals that may be interested in supporting the library to apply for that board position. Okay, with that, we will go to item number 11, which is closed session. Thank everybody for being here, and thank members of the public for listening in. And with that, we will go to closed session. So we'll take about a 2 or 3 minute break and get organized for that. Thank you very much. With